Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Push to Talk. We have a couple special guests here with us today. First, I'm gonna do a little quick sound check with the folks on video and in Discord. You guys all hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Fantastic. So we have with us today. We've got Jintan, who's been with us a little while. He's a CVSC CSM member, and he's the AT tournament commentator. One of them, in a fantastic suit, mind you. By the way, we've also got first time on the show. We got Opus Magnum. He's the CEO of Eve Onion, and that's a satirical news agency for those who don't know that. And within Eve Online, he flies with Dice Corporation and NC.
Good to be here.
And we have with us Uranus, who stopped in last minute here. Always welcome to join. We're happy to have him.
Emphasis on the special guest for me.
Special guest, Uranus. We are missing Mr. Moomin Amadan. He will show up soon. If not, I'll just cancel this segment. What the heck, we don't care. And so that's what we've got going on. Let's see. Let's check our show notes here. First thing we're looking at is one of the big things we're going to cover today is botting and Eve. Isn't that a fun topic for everybody? Caleb loves it.
Well, it's a thing.
I have a recurring theme.
I heard it was.
I haven't. I must have missed. I must have missed it. Like, is that a thing?
All humans are robots.
All right.
Please don't get my 5 body.
What news has come out recently then about botting?
Is it weird that I've just started watching Battlestar Galactica again?
Yeah, I just finished it like last week.
Such a good show. I watch it like I get over again like every 2 years or so.
Yeah, same. I actually bought it all.
Is there anything new on the botting front? I mean, last week we heard from the minutes that CCP is aware of botting, but they're not. It's not their biggest focus, at least from the security team end. Their biggest issues right now are account security and keeping everything safe. Is there anything new on the botting end?
No, other than their supposed plan to punish botters and that kind of crap is. They're like, oh, we're trying to be very harsh with it. No, a 3-day ban as a warning is not harsh.
Well, there's the spinning on the news cycle of the Reddit post from the Fireside chat. That's mainly where the whole bot theme got exploded.
Hey, before we dig into the botting versus hacking and all that good stuff first, since Noisy's brought this up, right? Just the way that the videos displayed from Skype here today, I couldn't get all of Jintan's fantastic outfit on the show, but look at him. He's got the big eagle, the red, white, and blue. He's got the camo up top. He just brings a tear to my eye.
He's being very American. Jin, I need you to not be American. I need to get married to you so that way I can move to England and immigrate into the Great Britain.
What you don't actually realize is this is my application for a green card. I'm just hoping that Donald J. Trump watches this video. He actually secretly plays Eve.
Oh, Jin, I got you.
No politics.
Guys, hashtag Donald Trump leads test. That's their incompetence.
Jin, I got you. Let's get married, and then you can immigrate
Y'all can
over.
both get dual citizenship.
Exactly.
But Jintan, don't you live in that shithole thing called Provi?
Not in real life.
Load that comment up. Why don't you? Jesus.
Oh God.
Hey, we can talk about.
I've got a fight in like an hour and a half, so like I'm not going to talk anything about it because I don't want to jinx it.
No, let's talk about it. Who's it against?
Let's hit into the botting versus hacking first, and we'll reserve a little time because we were going to talk about Pravi, and we're going to surprise Jintan. And obviously, I forgot to send the ping out as Life Shifter just told me. So,
ouch!
It's like you haven't done it
live.
To be completely honest, Eric, I forget about it all the fucking times. It's all good.
So we're gonna have to do that. No one's watching right now.
I would like to comment a little bit on the botting versus security issue, because it does feel a little bit to me like, well, one thing is really costly for CCP, and the other is not. So CCP is pushing a lot of buyers on what costs them a lot of time. So the whole security thing and getting your accounts back, right? That's very labor intensive for CCP, whereas botting is something they can kind of ignore. It's more a problem for the player base. So there is a little bit of a bias issue, in my personal opinion, on why they're hitting so hard on saying that botting is not a problem, but security is.
No, I completely agree, honestly, with CCP's point of view. Making sure that your accounts are secured, making sure that any of your credit cards are secured. Like, if I learned that my accounts were hacked and all my credit card information was just taken, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be starting canceling credit cards left, right, and center.
Yeah, but the point is that the cost is on CCP to make sure that they fix your problem if you get hacked, right? Whereas botting is not something that is necessarily something that they need to service.
It is true. It is true, but then again, you have to understand that CCP is a business, and as a consumer, or as a customer to CCP, like if you got your accounts hacked and you reached out to CCP and CCP didn't give a shit, how are you are you going to stick by the game that they make? Fuck no.
Yeah. And
you'd go somewhere else.
And on top of that, how big is botting? Actually,
that is my question.
We don't know exactly how. I don't think CCP would want to release those numbers on how big it is. I don't know. We might have some analysts here. I don't fucking know. But
if you look at it in historical perspective, you can ask the question: has it gotten worse or better than the period of Unholy Rage? And of course, Unholy Rage came in the wake of the launching of the Plex, so there was a huge push on trying to get into that market from call it the criminals, right? That's usually what you see when things like that enters a game. So is it worse or is it better than back then? Can we expect that there's 7,500, 10,000 bots running all the time in EVE? And if so, what does that mean to the game? Because game balance-wise, or at least ecosystem-wise, you need to multiply that by 10 or even more, because that's the factor of effective time that a bot has on a player, right?
Right. The way I kind of see it is, if you look at it historically, at the, way back, 7-10 years ago, it was pretty bad. What was the numbers when they banned a one ban wave, in a month? It was something like 3,000 accounts, maybe more than that.
That was Unholy Rage you're thinking of, I believe.
Yeah, Noisy Gamer just pointed out in chat, the day after Unholy Rage, the average concurrent user base went down 25%.
So the question is, are we at a point where it's worse or better than then, right? Can we expect that there's 15 to 20% of the players online are actually bots? If so, then we still have a huge problem, and it is impacting the ecosystem.
The issue there, Caleb, is the fact that you're making complete assumptions on information that you have no idea, that you don't know. It's a case of, do we know how many bots are out there? No. So we can't make an assumption.
I'm using known data to infer existing situation, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, on Holy Rage, they banned 3,000-4,000 accounts. This month past, just they banned 1,500 to 1,800. So it definitely has gone down in terms of absolutes. But you can't there's information there that you don't know, whether CCP has feels like it's actually found most of the bots, or that their detection methods are better than they were previously, in which case, it could well be that it's even better than we even think now.
I think it feels to me, at least in some of the, in some of the marketplaces like Jita, that you don't have as many marketing bots that are instantly one-upping, one-isking you. What do you guys think about that one?
Market bots have never been a major thing in EVE. It's mostly been based on rumor, and the impact on the economy is not that hard. Sure, there's a benefit with the whole patty cake of 0.01 isking, but it's pretty much what normal players do as well. So if there's like 20 players online and 1 or 2 bots, it's going to even out. It's not an effect.
Well, 1 or 2 bots is not an issue. Like, it's when there's like, 30, 40 bots where, you set a price and then, like, within 30 seconds, like your particular,
But that's the same with players. Players will do it just as fast.
Yeah.
So the impact is.
I don't know. Not as fast. Well, that's the entire reason of bots.
Trust me, they are
much faster.
It's real players that are competing with you that fast. It's not necessarily bots.
Yeah, because the bots gotta wait for the market updated data to update so they can even look at that stuff. I mean, they can't read off a screen. So
I'm fairly certain they can read off a screen.
Absolutely.
I'm fairly certain if we know anything about, I think if anything that we know about bots nowadays is they can read off a screen.
Well, they can recognize stuff. However, what I'm saying though, I don't think we underestimate how people are actually sitting there at their desk, ready to play the .01 is for. I've done it. I've done it for hours.
Well, I've been part of the MD, the market groups, for more than a decade, and we have this discussion coming up every 2 years or so, and people claim bots and no one can come up with good evidence, and it should be fairly easy to figure out whether or not a market competitor is a bot or not, because you can just insta sell or buy from that order and then follow up on who is that character and do your due diligence. We've not been able to find any really good evidence of active market bots in the game ever. So I don't think they've ever been an actual problem.
Yeah, I've just noticed them on occasion, but mostly years ago. I think the bigger thing that has come into focus specifically with, the value of skill points is the hacking of accounts, right?
It's because now they can suck all the goo out, so they get vastly more per account. Why do you think they can sell skill injectors so easily?
Yeah, it's just made theft more valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It means that now it's basically like now not only can they break into your house and steal all your shit, they can also steal your organs whilst you're asleep.
And lobotomize you.
Which is also why
But
it's kind of why I said that's an issue for CCP, because when that happens, it's CCP's responsibility to then recover those assets and roll back any of that abuse, right, when there's been a theft. So that's very costly on the support and security side.
But at some point, CCP is going to go, okay, we have authentication measures put into place. They're going to start throwing it back on us eventually, more so than them.
Well, they'll probably just start making it more and more a priority for people to have second, 2FA.
Yeah.
I think we've talked fairly consistently about wanting it either in the API so that we can make sure people who have hackable accounts don't get director spots. We've talked about that as a solution. We've talked about what else did we talk about? We talked about having some sort of skin that you can only get if you're 2FA.
That would be cool, actually.
I mean, having it in
there's a lot of suggestions that we've had.
Having it in the API should be a reasonable request. I know, like in Star Wars: The Old Republic, you can actually set that as a permission thing, is that you cannot be promoted to a certain point unless you have 2FA in the guilds, in their guild system, which is just like the best feature ever.
The problem with that really is that CCP doesn't want that information to be potentially available to people. They don't want a massive API scoop to be a great blacklist of like who you can just randomly frag account hacking wise.
Well, I mean, if they do it like an app on the smartphone or something like that, like all the other MMOs do for free, who cares?
Right.
They've given you a free security option you're not using. It's your fault.
That's correct, and that's why I am a proponent of having 2FA to be a requirement if you want your stuff, given back to you, if your account gets hacked. It shouldn't happen in 2FA, but
the main thing with 2FA is it needs to be a free. So you shouldn't have to buy another device to use the 2FA. So you need some kind of app on the computer as well. Because then it's I can't afford a smartphone. It's unfair.
Well, that's why you have
buy the $5 thing then, or there should be an app on the PC.
Well, there is Google Authenticator. You can do that. Also, Noisy has a good idea. I like his idea in the chat here. It says, how about 5% training buff if your account is using 2FA? Why not? I mean,
that would over time. That's way too much to get. Give her a 5% bonus over
we
the
have
over a year.
ejectors, we have other stuff. I don't think at this point a 5% boost.
Well,
I
the
think
problem is
some
that, like,
sort
when
of-
we're talking to TCP, they're like, no, we don't really want to give them anything for it because we feel that that's
Yeah,
unfairly slanting the market.
Which, I mean, honestly,
I'm-
if they
I'm
didn't give you
agreeing with
anything
Jen
for it,
on
that's
that.
fine.
I mean, a skin is. I think Gen 10 has a good idea. Maybe a skin if they don't want to give us 5% more training. That's fine. Just give us a skin. I mean, something. But you want to incentivize people to do this because in the IT sector, making websites, you're not going to get users to do something generally because it's good for them. They're going to have to be forced to do it usually, or unless they
then it's
are a
their own
victim.
fault.
If
their own
if you
fault.
want to force them to do it, they should just be forced to do it. Like, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion. We're in what? We're in 2018 now. 2FA is now so commonly used everywhere.
It's current, yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
it's-
still have to take into account that the EVE player base is maybe one of the most conservative player base in the world, right? Changing anything by force is risky.
Get over it. Hey, I'm going to show something here on the screen. It's very old, and the only thing that I think they did wrong by issuing these is they couldn't link them to an account if you had one. But there it is. Get that? World of Warcraft, 2FA. Not that I play anymore, but I still got the damn stupid little thing.
The dongle.
I'd love to. I'd love
Yeah,
to
I
have
love
an-
them. I still have
I'd
two
love
of
to-
them.
Yeah, I'd love
They're
to have
cool.
an EVE one.
Yeah. I would actually
I
carry it
still
because
think
it's a
the
cool
dongle-
nerd flag, you know?
That would be.
You do
a cool
also have
nerd
to
flag,
realize that making a fuck ton more money than CCP have.
but
I
the
think I
when
had
they
to-
probably
I
did
think I
that
had
to
to-
FA.
I think I had to buy it $5 or something. To
Yeah,
get
they were $5 to $15
that's
depending
cool.
on when they
I'm
came
cool.
out.
I'm cool with like doing that as well.
I get a thing.
The
I get a
fact
cool
that
thing.
I don't have to do an email verification if I'm logging into my EVE Online account from a different computer that I've never logged onto is scary.
Yeah,
That's
definitely is.
like, I honestly make there like some sort of email verification. You already need email to have the game, and that's pretty basic as far as that goes. As far as like a hardcore 2FA, like, again, like a one-time 2FA would be fine, but you know, the fact that I can log onto my EVE account from a different PC that I've never logged onto before and not need an email verification is scary, to be honest.
Well,
It's-
the issue
it's
with email
sad when-
verification, like
for me to
I'll
log-
tell you the. So, the issue with the email verification is most accounts that, according to CCP, most accounts that are hacked into not through brute force through
Through their
the
email.
client, but they're through the email. So if you required email verification, they've still got that already straight away, so they're fine.
Most of your breaches
That's
are
the
coming
issue.
from sites that you use the same email from and use the same password from.
Mm.
So
Exactly.
you're you know, and it's always about that, right? CCP can be as secure as they want to, but you know, while there's other sites out there that are being, you know, breached, you're going to keep having this. And CCP have you know, in the last I think devblog they come out with, they show you how you can show if your, you know, email address has been breached. You know, because it's always good. You should always change your passwords. By the way, people change your passwords at least every 3 months, if at least once a year, if you don't want to do it that often. That's a simple thing to do.
Yeah,
And
and
don't
don't
use
have
the
the
same
same password for everything. Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, well, often these hacked accounts are basically happen because a hacking group hacks into a certain website that has a whole bunch of different things, and they've got 3 different bits of information. They've got a password, they've got a username, and they've got an email account. And typically, nobody uses the same username or uses variations on a username. There's a lot of people use the same password, which is just dumb. But essentially, what happens there is they just go, use those 3 pieces of information, and typically the people who get hacked into are the people who use the same password for their emails. So they're into their email straight away. And then from there, they can get the usernames of all the different other websites they have. And then they use the same password, and some crack, some don't. But the ones that they do crack, they get into, and they find ways of stealing what's there, or making use of what's there, or being able to sell what's there. And if it's your EVE Online account, I mean, you've lost all your stuff and you've lost all your skills.
Yep, and it's fairly high cost for CCP to fix that, right, and do that research.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with what somebody mentioned earlier. Hey, if you get your stuff recovered, you have to go to FA, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, it's just dumb not to do it in these days.
I mean, we can discuss like whether using a third party dongle kind of 2FA is better than using, say, an app. I mean, I'd say that considering Google has a Google Authenticator, and that's what like CCP is using for at the moment for two-factor authentication. Is
why don't they just tie it into their own mobile app?
Well,
you can tie it to your own.
To be honest, when the World of Warcraft one that I had, I could either do it through the phone or that. Either one worked at any given time, right? So
Well,
I didn't
yeah.
have the thing.
I think
That's what I was gonna say.
because setting up a dongle would be a little more expensive, I think, than just doing like a text message based.
Yeah, but
Right.
It
You're
would
gonna
be,
have to-
but a text message base is still pretty insecure because that can actually be cloned and like the information on your phone can be cloned, and when you get like if it's a SMS kind of verification, that can also be taken fairly easily.
I think if hackers are on the level
the
of
best way of
cloning
doing
your
it is
phone,
app-based.
you can't really secure yourself in any effective
Yeah,
way.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, you
have to
can,
agree with
because-
you.
Because
If it's an
truthfully,
app on your
Google
phone, typically
Authenticator-
it's better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just Google Authenticator is one of the premier 2FA platforms out there who do this with. I use it for multiple Microsoft accounts, Eve accounts, all kind of Google accounts, all kind of stuff. It's simple. That's why CCP uses it because it's already a industry standard 2FA platform out there that works and it's simple and it's easy to recover. If you actually, somehow remove the app, you can get a way to get back into your account. It's not easy, but it's possible.
And there's also a reason why Steam uses a mobile app authenticator as well.
Alright.
Which is
You
why
can-
it should be put on CCP's own mobile app, right? Because then you can kind of code those things together.
But you also
Yeah.
have to keep those safe, though. Like, there actually is some, you can breach a 2FA server and get information from that as well. Now, granted, it won't mean much to some people, but if you can tie it back, even that has some things. So you want it to be with a secure entity. Not saying CCP's not, but I trust Google way more than I trust CCP.
Purely on the basis of they have just more everything to be able to fully secure their servers.
Their security
EVE
department
Online has a portal app? What?
Hey, I want
I
to.
literally just did a quick Google search and oh my, it actually does. Holy shit.
You did not know this.
No, I did not.
Yeah,
There's
I'm gonna move this on.
there's like a designed app for it from CCP. It's just not the best.
Not been iterated on at all.
You can.
No, it's been iterated on just like mostly in background ways. I don't know if they actually still have that group hired that made the app. Not sure.
Probably not. But anyway, I mean, it's great for sending email. I have sent a good bit of email through it. That's the only thing I use it for. Because I use other, third-party apps to track all my skills and stuff on my phone.
I only send Alliance
I think
mail through
most,
that app.
all of us probably do.
I said I only send Alliance mail through that app when I'm unanchoring things.
To be
Hey,
honest,
I
I
wanna-
never used it until I started doing EVE stuff on it.
So I want to give some shout outs that happened during that segment there. We got a couple follows from, I think, Drum Whisperer, if I copied that right, coming down through here. And Cat Lost Cartoons. We also had a 7-month resub with Did We Win Yet, who said
That's
that I
me.
was...
That's
that's
Did we win?
side-
Did we win
side-
yet? Is my Twitch channel?
No wonder you busted on me in that comment.
Of
Thank you very
course
much,
I did, because you're a punk ass buster.
Whoa, breaking out those southern insults now.
Not even a
That's
southern
not- you,
insult,
didn't,
it's like
you,
a
didn't even,
Jersey
you didn't
thing.
even bless his heart. That's how I know it's serious.
The
Oh,
80s
it's
called it like
terrible.
their,
You should see what
derogatory
he-
remarks back.
You should see what he puts me through during the week, and Skype is terrible.
I don't really send you crazy shit on Skype.
A little bit.
Yeah,
So-
you clearly
so-
don't want me following you on Skype then.
Well, he might
You gonna
have
call him a
access to different-
jabroni next or what?
Hey, let's hit up because Moomin hasn't been able to join us yet, so let's table some of the discussion on his things. But one of the things that I hadn't been able to look at or investigate is the AI versus the AI event, and Caleb brought that up this week in our internal chat.
Well, maybe, I don't know if Jinjan can correct or expand on it too, but it was basically from the CSM minutes that one of the devs mentioned that there had been an occurrence in one of the systems where the AI had actually caused NPC on NPC activity, right? Where no one had actually been around to see that this was going on. I think even the drifters were involved. So basically, you had the AI going crazy against other AI, and this just shows that some of the things that CCP have been trying to cook up in the basement might actually start working. We have an upcoming interview with, I think it's CCP Burger, that should come out as an article Monday or Tuesday this week. So we're going to be able to know more about it. I just think the whole development of the CCP AI is very interesting because it's something about things to come.
It's definitely a step forward in the sandbox as far as how the game is living. However, no one was really around to see it, so I really do feel like it's one of those situations where it's like if a tree falls and no one's around to hear it, doesn't really make a sound. And
I think it does.
If no one's around to see something like this happen, does it really matter?
I think it matters because if this is cool, right? We all think this is really great. I think that's important because this could start happening more, right? We're getting more different AI entities into the game. They're kind of encroaching on each other for their different rats. It also means that the CCP's coding these rats that target anything that is not friendly. So that has to come into play too, right? So I think that it's important because we know it happened, right? CCP told us about it. Now, I know we didn't see it, no one filmed it, but we're going to have more of these. And we may get more frequently as they introduce more and more of the new, encroaching, NPC style gameplay they got going on right now.
And they've already gotten to a point where they've increased in responsiveness and aggression, right? I think I heard that this week or the last 2 weeks, some of the players have actually been abusing this a lot with bumping freighters directly into NPCs because they then start aggressing for them, right? So there's many things that's going to arise gameplay-wise and getting the whole EVE ecosystem to feel like it's alive because it's actually engaging with the environment and with the players in a more livable fashion, right?
So we're gonna have to start buying mining permits from Guristas now.
There you go. Well, I actually lost an interceptor autopiloting between Jita and Amar. My pod made it, but my ship didn't.
I mean, if you honestly need to buy mining permits from the Guristas Menace, you clearly aren't no-lifing the rats enough. Get better. Get good.
You mean like people are going to actually just grind up Guristas standings now so they don't get griefed in high sec?
You know what? Actually, I think because again, this sort of like encroaching NPCs, it brings such a new aspect to the sandbox. So CCP's sort of view on sovereignty has sort of been like if you're not using it, or I guess with the current soft mechanics, you're not using it, your ADM goes down, so it makes it easier for people to hack it. What if in a future iteration of SOV, they make it so that if your ADM or whatever that is replaced with goes low enough, NPCs will start encroaching on your territory and other players are fighting for it.
But they are.
NPCs start encroaching on that space and start destroying your shit.
It also ties into the fact that CCP is perfectly capable of turning a knob very fast and getting the NPCs to actually be a threat to structures. They're already engaging player-owned structures at the moment. They just don't seem to have the strength to actually finish the job. But that is a very small escalation.
Yeah, they're attacking structures, but they're not returning after the enforcement timers, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And that should be fairly simple to add that. And if we start getting NPCs cleaning up unfueled structures, that would just be amazing.
Well, I think that one thing that I haven't really heard me talk about is you go to WoW, you go to any other MMO, and most time you're playing along with the NPCs, right? They're a full-on part of the environment. Whereas in EVE, we've never really had that, right? I mean, you had to go to this site or here to find the NPCs. Now they're actually coming to us, right? They're actually becoming a little more alive. They're starting to be part of the infrastructure of the game more.
Right.
And it feels more like space is real at this point.
I've never done any of the Drifter incursions, but in the Drifter incursions, don't they also have Amar Imperial ships like fighting alongside you or something, or is it just you?
Yeah, but those are generally meat shields. They'll prioritize you most of the time.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
I
you
will
have
say that those Drifter incursions are really fun, though. They're probably some of the most entertaining PvE that
Which is a
ever-
shame
has
because
ever
I've
been.
never. I need to do one, but they're only in high sec, and I'm deadly scared of high sec or low sec. Are they in low sec too, Jin?
They were in low sec originally, but then Drifter incursions don't exist anymore. They got removed from the game.
I think what I'm most interested in is the fact that NPCs are encroaching on raw materials, like in the case of where they're stripping out entire asteroid belts, because that means that there's this whole seesaw thing with the fact that if you want your fields of resources to be available, you might actually need to clear them of NPCs, right?
You might have to
Totally
actually
legitimate.
fight for it, even if you're in high sec.
That would be
I mean-
fun though. I mean, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I was talking to someone the other day, one of my staff members, and he literally lives out. I don't say where, but he has to mine and make money because y'all got to mine. But he gets tired of doing that all the time. Like he wants to do other stuff. He wants to do some PvP, but he doesn't want to do, PvP as in like me shoot other players. But he'd like to do some NPC that's actually more engaging and a reason why to do it, right? So that would give it a reason for people to actually have to, one, live in their space and fight for it, but not against people always. And two, as we're coming about and they're making the AI, more reactive, it gives these players that don't want to engage with other players but play the actual game itself.
It also gives them, like, if CCP can do it well enough, it also gives them a potential possibility of being able to introduce new players or new people to that, like, are in nullsec or that have just put their foot in nullsec. It kind of can introduce them to the style of play of nullsec in terms of fleet warfare.
Moomin is here. Moomin, can you
Yay.
grace us with your lovely voice? Okay, I'm
Moomin's my
guessing.
It's
computer.
basic. Yay.
There he is.
Hey,
Hey,
Moomin.
Moomin.
There it is.
We never mind late Moomin. Don't worry about that stuff, man.
That's it.
I'm offended that you didn't clear out your entire schedule to come do this show. Just so you know.
Moomin, can I get you to read out for me a modest proposal? And just in your deep, soothing voice.
Well, that depends what it is.
It's no, I literally want you to read a modest proposal.
The book. Oh, wait, what?
You guys are uncultured swines. I hope you all
We are,
understand
we
that.
I know what you're referring to. I know what you're.
You were here for all the Southern barbecue conversation, right?
Fucking
Okay.
eat all the Irish babies. Jesus Christ.
I'm going to start dissing myself now.
That's literally what a modest proposal is.
Oh, yeah, I know. By Jonathan Swift, right?
Yeah.
So
Classic piece of political satire.
should we segue to the Moomin part then?
Let's roll.
What are we,
Roll over.
Transformers?
Roll to what Moomin wrote.
Well, let's roll, right? Let's to the metal
That's it,
wheels
what
are
bit?
turning by Moomin Amadin, which you could read on Imperium News. Fantastic article. I always love Moomin's articles. I just enjoy how he writes.
I just want to quickly ask Moomin if, for the people out there who haven't read it, who obviously need to read it, can you give a kind of a TLDR to it, or is it too much, too deep to give a TLDR?
I'm not necessarily sure that a too long didn't read will help necessarily, but the bit that I was actually just like going for is quite often in Eve, we tend to become a little bit focused on the micro kind of like level that events actually happen, and we then tend to get kind of continually wrapped up in these like this week Try have done something, now DRF have done something, oh look, CVA are being farmed by PL, and I think that we tend to like go on those kind of like smaller kind of like stories, but when you actually step back from that, I think that you then have an opportunity to see like a slightly different story arc, and that's what I try to do in this piece.
Yeah, personally, I took away the whole aspect of rental empires again, because we kind of nipped that in the butt a lot when we were discussing how the markets would develop and what the new normal in the economy would be. And you kind of then pushed that agenda even further, that there is going to be a huge change in how the big groups and alliances are actually going to, call it, monetize their operations. And I was very interested in that aspect.
Yeah, but I think it's been like a natural transition, realistically, because let's be honest about it, it's like a lot of these entities that do favour the rental model. It would appear that they aren't quite keen on their income streams, which require low effort. And I mean, if we go back in time, is casinos. Well, yeah, it was a lot of effort for like some people actually running the site and doing all of that sort of stuff. But once you'd actually got that going, basically it's kind of free money.
Yeah, because we were mentioning the old aluminium tycoon. There's always going to have to be some sort of revenue stream for big groups, and usually they need to be slightly easy and AFK-ish, right? So whether you are, well, this is going to be slightly controversial, but on topic with what we talked about earlier, whether it's based on botting or someone credit card swiping or actual men in the field, labor-wise, like in Dell, which might be borderline sweatshop. But the point is, you need some income stream, especially because CCP has never actually focused on designing the game to have a proper bottom-up economy, right? So it needs to be top-down, and that means AFK-ish, like revenue streams.
I disagree with that entirely. I think EVE Online should try to go more towards that bottom-up, where alliances get the passive tax money from their members.
Yeah, I just said that CCP has never supported that.
I think they have on several occasions. I think they're starting to support that now even more with moon mining, making that a more active experience, making mining itself a lot more valuable. And on top of that, ratting has always been, well, just if you're good at ratting, you typically try to make it as passive as possible because who can stand ratting? But I think EVE Online could easily support that kind of bottom-up economy, and I think we've seen that very well in Delve, and I wouldn't say Delve makes it a very sweatshop maneuver. I would say that my taxes just go to my corporation, the corporation goes to the alliance, and, bada bing, bada boom.
But there's not effective bottom-up economy in Delve. There's no easy enforcement of getting the revenue stream from the bottom and up into the alliance coffers, because there is no good design. There's a trend towards that. You're right. I'm just saying that structures are still novel, right? And Lifeblood is pretty much not half a year old. So we have never had this type of economy in EVE. So in the past, every big group has been pretty much needing those AFK-like income streams, whether that is, as I said, credit cards or moons and stuff like that. It's all what's been financing the big stuff.
I might challenge you on that, Caleb, right?
My member tax for being an AMOC is like, what, 12%, 15%? I can't remember. That's all going... Where's that is going? That's going to my corporation, right? I am being taxed on all the money that I get from my corporation.
Yeah,
and that money is directly going, without my input, that money is going to my corporation.
I think Delve has one of the probably most streamlined taxation systems and revenue push to the alliance that anyone has. It's fantastic.
I think the only thing I think where there needs to be any active input of money going from me to the alliance is between my corporation and some alliance wallet.
Yeah, and even that's pretty streamlined and easily done, right?
And I'm pretty sure that's mostly just like Mittens pointing a gun at, Kilgarth's head and being like, "You're going to make us give money," or maybe not Kilgarth.
That's no gun.
Someone.
No, it's no gun.
It's probably, you're right, it's probably a dick.
No, it's not very challenging to do at all. Actually, where I think it is lacking in the bottom-up taxation is really when you go into the mining area, right? There's not an easy way for a corporation to tax its members from that perspective, other than structure taxes, right? And making them refine in your structures. But
which is why we have a catch-22, right? It's not a good idea to try to do a band-aid like solution and taxing it directly in the mining operation, right? Because that would just, in my personal opinion, be horrible. The problem is that the structures tax setups are not really optimal yet. So that's where you need to tweak it to make it even more a bottom-up thing.
I mean, that part, though, seems fairly cut and dry as far as an implementation of doing that.
Yeah, but just something as simple as the fact that the whole way that the structure tax is just one variable, and it needs to be a base value and a secondary variable. It needs to be a base fee and then a percentage take. Otherwise, you can't really have the granularity that you need.
Right, I'm just going to kind of, my spidey senses are tingling here, Caleb.
Yes, we are going away from the article.
Are you considering running for CSM?
I was considering it, and then I remembered what the CSM entails, so I dropped the idea.
Oh, well, I did wonder, you see, because I do love this time of the year when all of the pundits come out with their variety of solutions about how to make EVE great again, just before they announce they're running for the CSM.
Hey,
how
I
else
gotta
are they
ask
going to get
Opus.
like the publicity they need to get elected? Though, like if you're talking about someone like Cat,
actually, and I mean, it's like I've always felt that you've been actually really rather good at this, Jin. So you make this quite hard for me to like actually poke at you. But for me, it's like the CSM was all about representing the player community. And that means listening and being able to communicate on both sides. And I know that you did a lot of work during this last kind of like a round of CSM, where you actually kind of like communicated the minutes and like, tried to inform people what the CSM were actually up to. So, and I think that was ideal. You weren't necessarily going in and like saying, well, I think that we should take away local and, stop cloaky camping and all of these other things. It's like, because I think that far too many people like push that, EVE is broken in the respect that I actually play the game and I'm going to like fix this particular issue. And it's not going to happen. And it's sheer fantasy that they even like, think that.
Well, actually, Moomin, my name is Urhendus, and I am here to officially declare my run for the CSM. I am running opposed to Jintan. He has not supported the Weeaboo community within EVE Online. I will push CCP to better implement character design models, such as letting me have Neko ears on my character. I am Galente, and I want to roleplay as someone who...
I actually now have my vote. That's the problem.
And
that's a problem that
I don't think Jintan has made a very big push on that.
Well, that's furry.
I feel like...
Yeah, and
Urhendus, will you give me monocles specifically for my furry character?
Okay,
I will give you the most anime models ever. Like I want skins where like I have.
Can I have neon hair?
Waifu. I want
that we have
on the side of my dreadnought.
I think that we have just proven why this is all such a bad idea.
I want a skin. I want a skin from my Naglfar that turns it into a massive giant body pillow, and then I want to upload an image of my waifu onto that body pillow, and then I want to fly a gigantic dreadnought body pillow around in a fleet.
Jintan, these be fighting words. You have to say something.
And the fact that Jintan, an avid member of Anime Club in Slack, please join Slack. Slack is dying. Has not pushed for this is insulting. In my opinion, this needs to be solved like now.
Unironically, though, if you go and read the notes, I did specifically ask for cat ears during the first summit, and I can actually give me 1 second. I'll give you some live CSM leak.
Ooh, live CSM leak.
You keep talking. This will take
time. Because this will. All right, I will continue my insane rant. So this will no doubt kill Eve, as Eve just needs to die already. But I want Eve to die in a very loud yiff. So
I almost feel
loud, furry, orgasmic yiff.
Wait. Are you a furry?
No, but I support the furry members.
He supports furry rights.
I support furry rights. fact that I can say all this with a straight
All right.
face is honestly more concerning than it.
Can I just make my
so-
character look like a Wookiee, please?
Can I ask
so
what
that it's
furry
just
rates have to
official
do
all
with
over all?
Moomin's article?
But I mean, again, like I want
Can I
to be
ask
more
that?
in depth with lore. Let my characters. I've gone
Oh shit! Yeah, I got to blur out names.
because I
Okay,
want-
that was close. Holy shit!
You
They were just doxed somewhere.
We need-
Woohoo!
we need
Yeah,
voice
it's like, you know,
emotes.
when you say docs, though, do you mean, oh, look, I've just accidentally published their address, their social security number, telephone number? Or do you just mean it's like, oh, he's like, I've just published their name, such as, like, you know, Piggles, Pro God Legend, PGL, Tyler Crockett, or as I like to think of him now, Jiminy Cricket.
Oh my!
It's a case of, you know,
There you
yeah,
go.
people dox themselves all the time. Apparently, if that's the level of doxing that like goes on, never quite understood that myself.
I don't want to give out devs' real names because that would be bad for. There you go. There's the leak in public channel here.
Don't they do that themselves in the CSM minutes
Yeah.
though?
I thought, you know, it's like
3 or 4 places it's real names.
It's relatively easy.
That's a big drinking mug.
So now that I'm sure I've made half of the audience brains explode from autism, you guys
Yep.
can
Yeah,
go ahead
well,
and start taking drinks
had
now.
Well, just kind of back to what kicked this off is, well, the thing is, we were talking about an income stream. So it was, you know, the casinos were definitely an income stream at a point. You know, the moon goo, so like from posses, when it is in essence a relatively passive activity, that was always kind of like a mechanism for creating engagement in places where you wouldn't always see it. So people would fight over money moons. It's like that definitely was a thing. And now I would say that the rental side of stuff is probably the most attractive, although you could also argue that some of the stuff that Pandemic Horde has been up to in Perimeter with regards to trying to I can only really describe it as
annihilate.
high tech with these Citadel trading. You know, I don't think it's necessarily a particularly you know, profitable form of like income, but it doesn't really require a great deal of effort as well. I mean, it's like, you know, free money is free money. But renting definitely, to my mind, has become a lot more attractive in that regard. Well, not even necessarily attractive, I would say, you know, necessary.
Problem is, it's not really up to snuff compared to what's been happening in Dell. In the wake of, well, the past was things like casino money and credit card warrioring and moons and stuff like that you're talking about. But it doesn't really compare to what's happening in Dell. Now, I just did a financial video thing with Jintan, and it's going to be hard to compete with what I call old money and big market speculation. Or the intense number of man hours that's being thrown at things in Dell. So the rest of the models just won't be able to compete.
Okay, well, one of the things that I didn't quite understand earlier on this week, and, you know, arguably it's partly why I kind of like put my piece together as well, is Pandemic Horde on about we don't have enough space and we're moving off to Geminet. And that to me didn't make any like sense whatsoever, given the economic value that we know can be extracted from space by an active organisation that actually lives in their space.
You see, now I've got a full like autism mode reasoning as to why that went down, like diplomatically. I feel like because we know that Guardians of the Galaxy were previously attacking the DRF, and it's likely that that was supported in some aspects by PL, considering PL did deploy their super fleet in support of GO2G, even though GO2G gave the major thrust there. I wouldn't be surprised to see PL also get something in the vein of whatever GO2G was given to cease this war, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was Geminet.
I just don't understand the whole trigger warning, but the whole Lebensraum argument, it's not necessary because you can fit so many active laborers into very small spaces, like in Dell, where they are doing the whole anomaly goon holing, right, where they just cram so much stuff into that. So it's more an organizational problem. And the rental model is not really effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, but this is where it kind of like, I think that with that rental model, it's very much a case of the number of systems that you actually have access to. Okay, because it means that you can just do like, you know, a simple kind of like a deal when it comes down to the rental model, which is, okay, you give me 10 billion a month and you can use that system for whatever you want. That's it.
Yeah, and because you can't, when you're renting, you have to spread it thin, right? You can't cram all the renters into the same systems. So there's a problem, a paradox problem with the rental model versus, say, the Dell model.
Yeah, well, it's all to do with when people rent stuff. Yeah, when people rent stuff, it's like they want to know that they can use that space in, like, you know, a relatively predictable kind of like fashion.
And exclusively.
Exactly, and I mean, it's like that's what they're actually like playing for. But it just makes you know, complete nonsense when you know, Pandemic Horde are actually saying we don't have enough space for it to be lucrative for us, and I'm just like thinking that's complete nonsense because
it's about serial. It's about serial versus parallel utilization of space, right? In Dell, they stack a lot of people because they all have the same uniform on top of the same anomalies, where you can't do that in a rental model. You have to give each renter their exclusive access to the farms, right? So instead of farming that one field that's basically infinitely respawnable, you have to put them next to each other. So you have to have serial farming instead of parallel farming.
Yeah, personally, I see this as just a show of like economies of scale. Renters are all very small money-making businesses, and as such, they don't have enough room for specialization. You know, and we see
potato farming.
Yeah, no, it's not quite that, but like in the Delve economic system, you have people whose specialized roles are defend the other people who are making money, so that they can make more money faster.
Well, it's more the fact that it feels like combine harvesters and factory farming in Delve, whereas the rental model is more like potato farming. It's these small lots that needs to be next to each other because you don't want to farm in your neighbor's field, right?
I think there's more organization within the rental system than you would think, though.
Yeah, but they still don't like to farm in shared space. They want exclusivity, right?
There's organizational kind of aspects in terms of actually dividing up the areas, but like in terms of the scalability and, you know, the efficiency of the area that you have, then you know, it's nowhere near as efficient as what Goons are doing in Delve. So.
Oh yeah, I would not argue that fact. That the machine that is Imperium down in Delve is just it's a monolith. I mean, that's one I can describe it. What Imperium's done down there, to their credit, is just, you know, I wish that other entities in the game could do more like that, because I think it puts them in a good place to go out and do more stuff and not have to worry about losses. But yeah, Imperium's done some great stuff down there.
Yeah, so with all of that in mind, with what we've necessarily been able to produce in Delve, when you look at the MER, I mean, it's just like, you know, heads and shoulders above everything else. And yet when you look at the geographical footprint that is, like, you know, taken by Pandemic Horde, it's somewhat like comparable. In fact, it's very comparable. And yet they have like a third of the numbers.
You mean comparable, like, number of systems wise, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's like the actual kind of like footprint that they've got on the EVE universe itself. Yet a third of the numbers. And yet they're moving. And I'm not saying that it isn't a good move for them to actually go over to Geminate. And there again, that was what I was kind of like hinting at my article, is when I go through the winners and losers, well, it's like PH have kind of like lost, because whenever you have to move an organisation, it does put a stress on that organisation. You do lose assets. People do kind of like end up like, you know,
Feeling displaced.
Well, like displaced, they may or may not move. You might have some kind of like attrition there, but equally it can be like a big adventure. I mean, there is a plus side to it as well.
Yeah.
But you know, even in that kind of movement of assets, is like you will see fire sales. I'm sure PH members will remember that when they actually moved up from Quirius up to where they are now, you know, when they were fighting within the casino war itself, Suez actually made quite a big profit on all of them by doing their logistics and buyback program at that particular point. So, you know, people will make money off of Pandemic Horde members for that move over. But in saying that, Gemina, it's a good region, it's very close to kind of like Jitter. And I think that more importantly from the PAM fam, realistically, Pandemic Horde are being paid to actually take this region, and they've just increased their rental potential. Realistically, is like DRF lost a region, and PAM-FAM have picked up a region. There wasn't any need for any direct conflict there at all. But I think that the ties between Triumvirate, Fraternity, you know, definitely exist back towards the PAM-FAM. And a big part of me just thinks that the DRF as a whole has just been played for idiots. And it is like, you know, it's worked out like great for PAM-FAM.
Is it being played as idiots when you've lost a war and you're not getting obliterated from the fucking galaxy, though?
Yeah, but it's like Triumvirate to me were realistically always a proxy. Who cares whether or not they live or die? It's like, you know, it's Triumvirate. It's like, you know, they're on what, the 7th like version at this time. Yeah,
God,
so it's
like
a case of sort of like, who cares? It's like, you know, when you're using someone as a proxy for your own kind of like benefit, all you want them to do is actually just like kind of like poke something. Now, the really interesting thing I thought from all of this is back when Triumvirate were saying, yeah, we're leaving the DRF and we're going to go to war with FCON, a lot of pundits out there were saying this will be a really kind of like, you know, quick kind of fight. We're going to kill like Triumvirate in no time at all. It'll be easy, over in a few weeks. There we go. And yet it went on for months.
And
I
FCON
don't think
ended
that
up
people,
folding.
yeah, and I don't think that people necessarily expected that. And I think that it's shown some, you know.
Ooh, apparently there's a fight going down in Amamarke with PLNC versus Goons. Can anyone here speak to that?
Nope.
Only if I log in.
I just saw it at one of my Intel channels. Someone was just poking about it.
Like, asset-wise, what's on field?
Yeah, I got no intel yet.
Are we talking caps? Are we
It's
talking
definitely insane.
battleships?
Hang
Are we
on.
talking just like a Cerberus?
It's 2 Scythe fleets going at it. Just all Logi.
Okay. Just
All
all
Logi.
Logi. All
All
Logi.
Logi.
So
Logi brawl.
they're actually competing to see who can heal the other side faster.
No. What it is
I love
they're trying to figure out. They're trying to set a world record for the most logistics for fleet, and whichever fleet wins, the other side has to suicide their ships.
Well, there was
I'm
a
telling
time
you,
when
we should just have a war of love and see who can rep the other side.
Apparently,
faster.
it is a Suitoyo timer.
Ooh.
there was a time when the Imperium were told that they would never ever be able to form a fleet larger than 100 people ever again.
Moomin, I don't know what you're talking about. We still have never been able to form a fleet larger than 200.
We don't have more than 100 actual players.
Okay, so
They
it's not
really don't.
goons, it's just people calling snuffed goons now because XD nice meme.
Oh.
So it's snuffed in
swear,
Max
Jack.
versus PL and NC and Rogues. Pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
that's kind of like fine though, because Snuff, they are a member of the Imperium now. We've never like hidden who our friends are, you know, and who the members of the Imperium are.
Yeah.
And I've always liked that about us, because it means that if you want to fight, then you know exactly who you are fighting, and you know how there's no deceit there.
Well, I mean, like, wouldn't you, like, Moomin, you've been playing for a long time, would you say, like, the sort of political meta over, like, the past even 3 years has shifted to a point where you first knew who your friends were. They were either blue or they weren't, to this sort of blue troll where, depending on a case to case, you could be shooting at someone and then teaming up with them the next day.
Yeah,
Do you,
well,
do you ever find that as kind of annoying, Moomin?
I'm going to take this as a moment just to quickly duck out. I've got a fleet to run, so
Have fun.
take care, everyone.
Screw
Have a
you,
good
Jin.
podcast.
Good luck.
I will see you on the CSM polls.
You know what?
I'm
That's
going to
gonna
pick you,
mess up
Jin.
all
No, baby.
the video. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to switch them off and then like rejig them and turn them back on.
But I'm going to follow Jen out the door.
So what you do here, Eric, is you send me a message on Skype, and then I join the call, and I will take over for Jen as being the beautiful person.
There you go. We should have done that a little better.
And-
Now, we
and-
got two
too bad.
McLeods. We got, everybody's everywhere. So let me go.
But no,
through.
guys, I'm going too. Thanks for having me. I have to
Hey,
leave.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Open.
Well, that broke in the most weird way.
It did.
Ew, I don't
It's
want
like,
to see.
is that your special neck cam?
I know, it's fucking strange.
Now we see only, ew, Jintan's forbidden replaced. I want my cute Jintan back.
Fuck you.
Oh, fuck.
Actually, it was Caleb. It was actually Caleb who took over Jintan's thing.
I'm sure I can
Oh,
channel
well.
Jintan if I need to.
Do it.
Anyway,
I just
well,
need to step up my edginess.
Let me hear your fake Southern accent.
while
so you
Eric
can
screws around with
And
this.
as he's coming to naturalize to the U.S.
To be fair, like when I was like playing Eve a little bit more seriously than I do now, a lot of what I did was basically go around trying to figure out who are alts of who, etc., and I have to give it to PanFam and the sort of that kind of political side, that specific side of the political sphere in Eve. They know how to do security through obscurity. The amount of shell corporations and alliances that they have is impressive.
So you're saying they're masters of obfuscation.
Very much so.
Can we confirm that, Moomin?
Well, I'm going to say that yes, and with very good kind of like reason as well, because you go back in history, and you have like the fall of Bob. Bob then tried to rise again in the form of like IT. Then it was a case of the model seemed to change a lot more for PL and NC. Now they didn't disappear like completely, but PL very much so. This nomadic kind of like mercenary for hire typed entity that it was. It became, well, and how do you attack PL? Because they've got no space. It's like they don't do that because when they were associated to space, it was normally through another organization. And I think I can say with a fair degree of confidence that they used to and still exist within the Imperium. Because if you want to mine and like rat and do stuff in space and actually extract wealth from space, well, we do it quite well. So why wouldn't they necessarily join us?
Yeah, exactly. But like even people like NC and PL and stuff, like they make renter empires and stuff like that, like Brothers of Tanga and the Northern Associates and all that.
Yeah, but you say
like,
that,
but they're very
whenever,
obvious. They're very
whenever
obvious
you talk
kind of
about
things.
Bot, though, Brothers of Tangra, is
Mhm.
I think that there's generally some sort of idea that this belongs to the DRF. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's not. It's Brothers of Tanga are very much a vehicle for providing PanFam and NC. I mean, NC used to bring in a fair. I am fairly certain that NC used to bring in a fair amount of like ISK income out of third party stuff, like EveBet was
Yeah, but do you
very much an
notice-
NC thing.
Do you notice
And
though,
there was-
that whenever PL talk about Brothers of Tangra, whenever you mention it, it's quick as a heartbeat. They we sold that ages ago.
Oh, we
That's
just scammed
nothing
that.
to do with us. Blah blah blah.
It's odd that they go into serious defensive mode about that.
Yeah, it is, and it's also odd that it's obviously run and managed by Lady Scarlet, which would seem to infer that DRF aren't capable of running their own rental scheme. But then you've got Shadow of Exdeath, which proves that they are capable of running their own scheme.
Yeah, they are capable of running their own rental scheme, but they contrary to what some goons would say, Lady Scarlet is actually, like in a certain frame, she's agreeable to work with, to some degree. So,
Yeah, but it is
she can keep relations fairly well. She's a good diplomat in
there
that
we go.
regard. So
it's let's be honest about it. The size of the DRF, there is no way that they wouldn't necessarily have the bandwidth as an organisation for other people to pick up the task and be able to do it. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's not a skill set which is completely kind of lacking within Eve in its own right.
You guys are climbing into a very deep meta rabbit hole right now, right?
It's an extremely deep.
So that's maybe something we should push for a different show.
But so we are talking about alternative income streams, and that is
and you're definitely also bringing up the whole thing of the fact that so many things has to do with old money in the game, and you mentioned Bob and IT and all that.
It's not just old money; it's also old play styles as well.
Yeah, old organizations and old money, right? It's the same names that show their face every single time, right? Whether you're talking about Lady Scarlet or Celine or Sword Dragon, it's the old god, the old gods. I think Moomin has called them at one point.
To a degree,
only god I worship is the god Emperor Mittens.
Yeah, praise be unto him.
But that's the thing. That's the big difference between sort of say, or at least as far as I know, with regards to the difference between Imperium and PanFam kind of thing, is there's a lot less obscurity through security through obscurity, at least seemingly done on the Goon side anyway.
Yeah, well, but equally now I would actually say, over the last year, the security through obscurity from the PanFam side as a whole is less if you're actually looking for it. They are more brazen in what they actually do nowadays, and if I'm completely honest about it, is the stuff between Tri and the DRF, that to me just screams of PanFam. Is that you're in trouble as soon as you've got Elite and Grath that are having a conversation where they're saying, you are the good guys, you're going to be doing great, blah, blah, blah. Because whatever you're doing at that particular point in time, you are acting as a proxy agent for PL. Yeah, if PL are encouraging for you to do stuff, it's not because you're great guys, it's because PL can actually see themselves benefiting somewhere down the line.
Hey, you know what? Test fell for it for such a long time as well. Test for their meat shields for such a long time. But I mean, if you want to live that life, live that life. I mean, all power to you. But
Speaking of old gods, we should segue to the last segment, because a little piece of news hit us this week about one of the very old EVE developers, Torfi Frans Olofsson. Has now actually left EVE, which I personally have a little bit of a tear for, because he was one of the very interesting and hype-generating developers in EVE.
He was a very passionate kind of advocate of EVE Online.
Yeah, and he
I
was
hate to see
part
that
of
go.
what I call the old gang. Not entirely calling it the Rat Pack, but the inner circle or the top echelon of the developer crew way back in the beginning used to have like this 4 or 5 people that was extremely prominent and visible in the dev group. And Torfi always did the presentations and stuff like that, and was very much active in promoting and branding CCP and EVE Online.
Yeah, he was. But then again, like, I mean, when you look at sort of the more recent 5 years, you know, he has kind of, I mean, it was almost as though he kind of took charge in the, you know, the new kind of aspects of EVE, or the new IPs, very much so.
His role changed
I think the thing
after
is,
the Summer of Rage, right? I'm not going to say that he was benched, but it felt very much as if suddenly, in the wake of all that anger, they kind of needed to put call it the hype meister in some sort of little room, and then only bring him out when there was something important or interesting.
Just like, you know, less of the sugar and calm the fuck down.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the whole change with going into the Seagull era and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to point out that some of the old magic from people like Torfi, and back when Hilmer was more proactive, and when we still had Over, Nathan Richardson, it was just a different time, right? Where there was more ambition, almost naively so. And it just feels as if this is the end of an era. I know I might have gone a little bit overboard saying that this takes us into total maintenance and janitor mode, but it feels a little bit like it, because as we've discussed on Talking in Stations, especially with Dirk as well, the whole old school, big vision, big ideas, almost Steve Jobs-like presentations, they're just gone.
Well, I think you know, when it comes to someone like Torfi, like, he is a bit of a big idea kind of guy. I think that's probably one of the reasons why, you know, he took the sort of took the reins of some of the new IP kind of ventures, because he's someone who can kind of flesh out a big idea. But, you know, even if those ideas don't really sort of, you know, end up seeing the light of day, unfortunately.
It's just in my veteran perspective, it feels like we've gone through 5 years of I don't know, open heart surgery, where like, stuff's just been pulled out, right? This one doesn't work. This one doesn't work. This one doesn't work. Maybe it's all good decisions. It's just that we are now left with a little bit of a husk it needs some revival. It needs more oomph and more color and more ambition and hype in there again.
Well, I mean, it could be down to the fact that, like, you know, CCP have looked at, you know, especially during the, especially like when they laid off a whole bunch of people. You know, when you lay off a whole bunch of people, essentially it's, you know, we're not doing too well as a company, so we need to rein in the costs versus the actual, you know, sort of what we make. And when you kind of do that,
I've just finished watching the Steve Jobs movie, and I'm just very much afraid that CCP is going to end up in the same situation as Apple did when they laid off Steve Jobs, right? Are we going into a total crash that needs a revival? I'm not saying that people like Nathan and Lekyard and Torfi was like Steve Jobs. I'm just saying it smells a little bit like the same type of story. I feel like we've just gone to the point where, put it in maintenance mode and let's just try to milk the consumers.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think it's more along the lines of CCP kind of realizing that, you know, all of this, or like shotgun style, trying out new ideas and then just throwing money at it hasn't worked, and so, you know, they've had to scale back as a point of necessity. And I think the only kind of way of doing that is, unfortunately, the layoffs that you saw, and you know, sort of changing people's job descriptions around, which is what happened to Torfi for, you know, 1 year, and then I think pretty much he kind of he saw either he saw the writing on the wall, or which I think kind of is the case. I mean, he was he left. He wasn't like laid off or anything. He actually left of his own accord, right?
So I've seen things happen at that level before many times, right? And generally, it is a writing on the wall. I mean, I think you're in maintenance.
Well, it seemed more amicable than like, oh, by the way, your job description does not exist anymore. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but it's different than that, right? So people.
So I kind of feel like, he was like he was in charge of a lot of the projects over the last 5 years that didn't really see the light of day, and to be honest, it is completely. Like, it's shown by some people, some of the comments on some of the Reddit posts about how people kind of like, oh yeah, we're really going to miss him because of the, the movie deals and the TVs, the TV series of Eve and all of the different kind of Eve stories that were published via Dark Horse. All of the things that didn't actually happen.
Yeah, you don't need.
I'm not even sure
if you're downsizing, right?
Yeah.
So, and you guys couldn't hear me because Discord did fun things with sound again. I've seen this before at this level, and he's almost a C-level guy, right? I mean, they see the writing on the walls. There's conversations that happen. And rather than outright letting somebody go at that level, they say, hey, this is probably what we're going to do, and they move on. However, going to Microsoft for what he's doing, right? His Facebook page already has him in Seattle.
He's going to Minecraft.
Yeah, and which is owned, right? It's probably a pretty good payday.
Yep.
So that's a good thing, right? I'm happy for him in that nature. But I do think it solidifies you are indeed in maintenance mode, right? I mean, we've assumed that for some time now, and I'm telling you, you're there for good now. You just are. But yes, I mean, at that level, they know when to move on, and when you see that sort of movement at that level, you know what to expect in the future.
And could a possibility of CCP needing to go into sort of this maintenance mode sort of be tied to their developers in some respect? They don't have the skill or the vision on board at the moment because most of the vision that was there, say 5 years ago, has moved on to studios and developers that will pay them better, right? Because I don't think it's like a secret that CCP doesn't really pay their developers a whole lot.
That's not necessarily a bad observation, Urandus. I mean, it's a perfectly valid point, right? I don't see... I think I've told you guys for a long time, I don't think CCP itself has the vision for what this game can become. I think it's much more than they can imagine, but that's just me. I could be wrong.
And I do agree with that, but it feels to me as if they've cut away the people that were very hyped to actually do that and create that game. They've lost them along the way, right?
Yeah, and I think the only way CCP would really bring Eve, like this is just from what I've seen in current game development meta, is the only way CCP is really going to be able to bring Eve out of sort of this development halt, if you will, is basically they're going to have to sell themselves to a certain publisher or a certain people who can pay them more money, more, substantial money than sell to EA. But then that also brings out, other issues with the current MMO, market. We see a massive shift towards a more monetized game, which surprisingly EVE Online has been very monetization neutral, I want to say, not friendly, because there's still a subscription, but they haven't monetized the game in the way that many other games have.
Well, they are now.
Peter pointed out, this is really a question of do or die, right? It's can they pull a rabbit out of the hat? Otherwise, they will have to do what Aranda said. They had to sell to someone that can actually finance the next steps in EVE Online.
Yeah, and I don't personally see CCP being able to do that. So I'm assuming that they've cut. So what I assume they did is they sold a big portion of their VR because the VR is a massive overhead. And so if they wanted to sell to a company like EA, they would want to make themselves as very low overhead as possible. But I'm not a business person, so I don't know
No,
if
no,
that
no.
was.
I'm very much of the fan of
Sell
what Noisy's
overhead
saying.
and keep asset.
Noisy said
That's
stuff.
a good idea.
Yeah, he's saying Amazon. Full stop.
Amazon.
Yeah, no, Amazon. Amazon wouldn't be a bad.
It wouldn't be a bad
would-
choice.
that
would be interesting.
Considering it wouldn't be a bad choice. It wouldn't be a bad choice. But even so, like, I don't want to sort of take this out of the whole serious territory. But like, if it is Amazon, oh man, I'd love to see in the integration that you can make from Eve and from
Amazon
Amazon
Echo.
using
I've always
Alexa.
said I wanted to control all of my Eve ship with Alexa. I would love to fucking be able to do that. Like Alexa, launch fighters or whatever, and it'd be amazing.
It'd be like
Mac.
Alexa, log in 42 Rorks.
Hold
Well,
up, I'm actually
Alexa,
really,
red alert.
I'm
And
actually
she'll start
really
setting an
curious.
alarm off.
Mac, you said you're like a business kind of on the business side of thing or of something, right?
No.
I thought you said you were.
No,
I've-
seriously, if you have the echoes, tell it. You got
I have a degree in music production, but
Oh, never mind. Well, because like my real, because like I've always been really curious. Would CCP be more valuable to someone buying them by either having or not having that VR sort of team? Because would that extra overhead make them less valuable, or would that make them more valuable because the resources are already in place from there? I'm not. That's one of the curious things about markets. I'm always sort of curious. Is, yes, Sam says to me.
The resources there, but you know the market and the technical availability isn't there yet. So it's kind of like it's like it would be a resource that doesn't have a home really.
So it would be
and
more
that's
of the overhead kind of thing. Be better just to not have it.
It depends in like what you've actually kind of like got. So obviously, if you're paying like for a VR team, then that's going to increase the kind of like costs for your particular association. But if there is no cash or revenue stream coming in to your business as a result, then they are just an expenditure. Now, people might speculate on, the type of technology that you've got, or how good your team is, or expertise, knowledge, IP, whatever. That's a completely different thing. Because I mean, it's like intellectual property, for instance. Well, it has no value aside from what others actually place upon it. So, it depends a little bit. But the way that I kind of saw the VR market is it's kind of good. And it's a lot better than when I was kind of like, looking at it probably 30 odd years ago. But it's a case of it's still a technology that is a solution realistically looking for a problem. Now, when a lot of people that like play Eve, for instance, will play for like many hours at a time, do you really want to wear a headset every time that you want to like do some gaming, like every single time?
That'll be
No,
mental.
no, it would suck.
It would
It's a
completely.
lot of setup for something that's supposed to be casual at this point. Essentially,
Yeah,
where
and-
it's playing games is your relaxing hobby. Essentially,
Yeah, and I think that
our heads on to do that.
I think that the biggest market for VR going forward is actually in places like the gym. Yeah, so it's like kind of activity where you put on the headset for kind of like 20, 30 minutes, whatever, do your workout in far more pleasant surroundings potentially than what are actually there.
I would actually see it more in medical studies, keeping that that's been an idea of VR since I think its inception.
Yeah, but these
having
medical studies
train
is
with it.
it's very, I'm gonna say it's very niche. Okay, whereas gym membership and doing stuff in gym is just like ubiquitous.
Problem
It's
is, I
everywhere.
don't want to wear the gym's VR headset because that would be fucking gross.
And
People don't wipe the machines down. You expect them to wipe the headset down?
Yeah, and that's another kind of issue when we come down to that sort of thing. So it's like, how do you make that technology appealing in that kind of context? But for gaming again, it's like casual gamer, it's absolutely fine. 30 to 60 minutes with a headset on, yeah, it's probably fine if you don't throw up because you're one of those people that are sensitive to it. You know, but beyond that, it's like I just look at it as a chore. It's just like it's a hindrance to everything.
I mean, one of the areas of sort of virtual reality that I mean, I know the virtual reality is kind of the VR aspect is kind of dying down now, very much on a downward trend. One of the other aspects that came out of the VR resurgence, which seems to be gaining more and more traction, is the AR or augmented reality kind of scene.
Yeah, augmented,
and that looks much more doable in a practical kind of sense.
Yeah, augmented I'd say is a lot more attractive. The thing about VR, I think it's just going to be a bit like 3D television and films. It'll become popular every now and then for a little bit, and then it'll just disappear again, and we won't have to suffer it. But augmented reality, now that's a different thing.
Any Pokemon Go players in chat? X up.
Pokemon Go.
Because there was a fairly recent augmented reality kind of offering that happened soon. It wasn't Magic Leap, and I know Caleb's like must be almost itching to sort of talk about Magic Leap.
Well, no, Intel have just done one, haven't they?
But Intel, was it Intel's, which is more passive? It actually looks like just a.
No, I'm more itching to mention that the reason VR is so difficult is because it needs the resources, as we covered in one of the other shows, right? And it's the same with the Internet of Things. Until you got some automation that goes out and actually generates that content, right? Tracks all those items in space. If that's got to be done manually, and which is what it has been done in the past, right? That's not going to work. But VR might actually come back 3-4 years down the line when augmented reality has basically mapped out all the Internet of Things and all the resources needed to create effective VR.
Yeah, and the article that I just linked, it's the Verge kind of article. Like that literally shows you how normal these augmented reality glasses look like. I say maybe augmented reality might be a bit of a push, but it does produce a screen. You can see stuff in it, so how augmented you can get from there is debatable.
Yeah, but it's the kind of like the first kind of step. When I go back 20 years ago, okay, I would have killed someone for what exists within a relatively kind of like the $100-$200 like phone nowadays. Yeah, it's like as my desktop computer. I would have killed you for it. It's like without a shadow of a doubt. Just 20 years, not that long.
I love how casual your
murder plans are.
Your morals and murderability.
Fucking willing to murder for 2 gigabytes of RAM.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're not wrong.
And think about that. Think about that Apple commercial, right? Where the little girl's running around doing all this stuff throughout the day on her tablet, and she's in the backyard.
What's a computer?
Yeah,
I fucking hate that advert so
much.
Stab
that child.
Oh my god.
Apple is shit.
But it's true. I mean, when you look at the younger generation, that's what they know, right? They don't know desktops like we know desktops, right? We have the PC master race, right? So, things are just going to get smaller and faster and more efficient, and it will be interesting to see how this all progresses.
I think that there's also quite a bit of scope for some of this. I mean, I've got some friends that I've always followed this kind of technology like very closely. The wearable computers which are available now is sort of like to actually power stuff through the movement of your body, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's kind of edging there. It's not necessarily practical where you can just pop it into the washing machine. But the thing is we are chipping away at there. And personally, I see it as good stuff, realistically.
As far as the United States obesity scale is going, I think powered exosuits are probably going to come faster for, fatter people to get around easier.
There's all sorts of benefits that technology can actually offer us. But the transition as a society, I think, is going to be the tricky thing, because obviously, you know, there aren't going to be like painful kind of bits as we like go along. I mean, if you take like logistics as being one of the kind of like the main ones that there's definitely a commercial interest in reducing the cost of logistics. Okay, so like self-driving trucks, that's going to be a thing. And when you've got like, you know, literally globally millions of drivers out of a job, you know, that's
it's tied to the fact that we need those bridging technologies, right? We need those things that kind of gives us maybe not a quantum leap, but at least a big leap, right? Going from dial-up classical modems to proper DSL and then modern connections, right? That is a huge step for actually proliferating and generating the internet. And we're going to need something similar with all these technologies. This is why I think the main thing from self-driving cars is not going to be the actual driving of the car. It's going to be the generation of data from point cloud information and pretty much knowing how everything looks and where a lot of things are at the moment, right? That's going to be a huge driver for the Internet of Things and the next stage in the internet.
I think there's a lot more practical aspects of that than just that, Caleb. Like when you start automating things, like, yeah, people lose jobs because automation kind of starts taking over a little bit. But the other thing that happens is more stuff can happen with fewer people there. And so if you have the same amount of people, as long as you can retrain them to doing, you know, jobs that are still existing, or, you know, retrain them to be able to, you know, basically, you know, be a janitor for those automated processes, you know, the efficiency of, you know, your community, your country goes through the roof. And like, I mean, I'm saying this from, you know, a perspective of a Brit who basically has been, you know, and we've been kind of told that, like, you know, the efficiency in our country is absolutely shit and we should really kind of work on that. And unfortunately, you know, automation and, you know, automated processes will do that at the cost of people's jobs, but people need to learn to retrain. So you don't get a thing for life.
Well, I kind of disagree with that because, and just kind of like, you know, run with me a little bit here. But say that we kind of keep creating machines and programs that continually become better. And I mean, it's already quite interesting how pervasive these machines, robots, AI, automation is already within our society. I think that kind of like, you know, one example is if you look at the stock exchange, I think it's something like about 45% of all transactions on the stock exchange are now like just completely automated. If you look at the Google advertising system that is in place, is a bidding system that is run by robots, run by AI. You know?
I just don't think that the main thing is going to be automation. I think remote presence is a lot bigger in effect, right? I think it's actually Arthur C. Clarke that predicted that no one would need to actually go into an office and work from there. They would be able to do pretty much everything remotely. And we're not there yet, right? And
well, no,
this has got to do with remote presence.
No, I would disagree with we're not there yet for the remote office type like thing. And you talk about remote presence, and it's like, you know, we're actually playing a game where we have thousands of people able to interact with each other to actually reach common like goals, and then never meet with each other. Okay?
Oh, I'm just saying that the robotics and automation. I think it's more likely that we will move into a point where we can do a lot more things remotely. I'm not exactly going to say drones, but it is similar, right? You can operate or be actively engaged with someone regardless of time and space. And I think that's a bigger step than automation, because automation is still so limited. I know that AIs are really getting good, but they're getting good at very specific things. They are horrible generalists. So I do think that they will not be taking over that many jobs, or at least more jobs will transition than most people are aware of. It's more that the labor force is being cut down, pretty much like the labor force on farms today is a 2,000th of what it was just 100 years ago, right?
But that's kind of like my point. I mean, in the UK recently, they went and said, yeah, this whole crop, from start to finish had been kind of, created auto magically with no intervention from humans whatsoever required. That's it. It was just an automated process that happened, and that's kind of like quite interesting. And for me, this is one of the bits that people say, well, historically we've had like great changes. Is like we've gone from like horse and cart to car, stuff like that. And people said, oh, you're gonna like lose all of these jobs. And it's like, we did lose those jobs, but we created new jobs. But I think that when you actually start to look at some of the stuff which is there, if you look at the stuff like from Boston Dynamics, for my own sins, I must confess, I like watching those production line kind of video things. Is sort of like
Oh, totally.
God, you're such an old person, Moomin.
Well, but the thing is, it's like those machines are just like fascinating. I mean, to me,
no, they're actually really impressive.
It gives you a new perspective on like what can be automated. Like things that you didn't think could be automated are automated.
As the youngest person here, just hearing Moomin talk about old person fascinations is just like.
Wait till he starts talking about first-hand experience with red flag policies.
Next thing you know, Moomin's going to start talking about what the world was like when dinosaurs still walked the earth.
So, Newman, what's the best technique for using a hammer and chisel to write class notes?
He remembers the best way to get to work was to round up your nearest Triceratops and ride that into your department's office. Not even like parking it outside, just ran it right through the walls.
No. It's he knows how to master the Oregon Trail because he was there.
I think he remembers the scare of actually being liquefied if you were driving a car that could drive more than 40 miles per hour.
Tell me, riding a Triceratops to work wouldn't be cool.
I would totally.
I would totally. It would be slow, but I would totally ride a Triceratops.
Hey, we're gonna wrap here in about 4 minutes, so I want to give everybody their last thing, the one last thing, right, to say here, and I'm gonna start with McLeod.
See what? Oh,
your one
Challenge
last thing
66. Next episode, Moomin meets Triceratops.
There you go.
Oh, that sounds awesome. We going on shoutouts?
Yeah, we're on shoutouts. Whatever.
Okay, shoutouts to my guys at the Initiative and T-Grats, and better luck next time when it comes to fighting 4-1 against.
There you go, Caleb. You're up, brother.
Shout out to Trophy Friends and good luck on the Minecraft thing.
There you go, Saith.
A shout out to the fact that I have RW playing in a Star Wars tabletop RPG with me now.
Oh, that's frightening. That is so frightening.
It's going to be fun. He's our smuggler. I'm our technician. We're going to blow shit up.
Oh, no. Urandus, you're up.
Shout out to Anime Club on Tweet Fleet Slack. Support my weeaboos.
There you go. And Moomin, what do you got for us today?
I would just like to thank all of my brothers and sisters and people that are not necessarily identifying themselves that way in the Imperium for continuing to make Delve great again.
Right.
Hold on, Lacania just subscribed. Thank you, by the way.
Yes, thank you, Lacania. Much appreciated, sir. I'm going to say, as somebody who is deeply involved with automation and doing all that stuff, that the one thing we have to be careful with all this things that we can do today, buying on Amazon, not going into the stores to buy things and things of that nature, let's make sure that it doesn't take out the human interaction factor, because interacting with humans is probably the biggest thing that help you cope with life and deal with things. And, having friends like you guys is great online. And let's hope that the future generations realize that and get it going.
Amen.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty,
you can only have Vegas bacon if you have friends online.
Oh, Vegas bacon. I did get that from an online friend, didn't I? And it was
I wish I wasn't poor.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you for all the subscriptions, and we appreciate you guys being in the audience, and we appreciate all your comments in the stream chat. So thank you very much, and we will be back same time next week. Thank you, everyone. Say bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.